What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the career of actress Claire Danes. Most people first heard the name Claire Danes from the short-lived television series My So-Called Life, where Danes played Angela Chase. And there's two reasons this show has lived on. One of them is the fact that it tackled serious topics with thought and care, not just for attention-seeking. It was never edgy for edgy's sake. And the other reason, I think the biggest reason, is the performance given by Danes. I know the word authentic gets thrown out a lot, but it's the best word to describe her on the show. She was 15 when she played the part, and you feel that in a lot of these shows, the teens are played by 20-somethings who have to look back to relate to the character. But in this case, Danes is bringing herself to the role. A common theme I find in these teen shows that resonate with me is there's an undeniable great performance at the center of them. Linda Cardellini in Freaks and Geeks, Zendaya in Euphoria. They elevated those shows above the normal melodrama teenage soap operas we're used to, and Claire Danes definitely did that and then some with My So-Called Life. Danes, for her work on the show, was nominated for an Emmy. The series only lasted 19 episodes, yet it has a lasting cultural impact. My So-Called Life came out in 1994. Also that year, Danes made her film debut with Gillian Armstrong's Little Women, along with already established Winona Ryder and Christian Bale, and fellow newcomer Kirsten Dunst. Danes is one of the highlights of the movie, playing Beth, and my favorite scene of hers is when she's gifted a piano by Mr. Lawrence, played by James Neville. Here's what Danes herself told Scott Feinberg of The Hollywood Reporter on the Awards Chatter podcast about that memorable scene. Quote, "Yeah, I remember talking to my dad about that scene at the time, kind of wrestling with it, trying to think about how I would play it, and I guess my dad was around and I was doing my homework with the scene, and I guess maybe, I don't remember what I asked exactly, something I guess, why does she have this response to this gift? And my dad said she realizes that she's loved, and it makes me cry. I think it was just so right, and that really helped." End quote. Look, I agree with the overall consensus that Greta Gerwig's adaptation of Little Women is a masterpiece, but if you haven't seen the 94 version, do yourself a favor and watch it, and if you do, you will walk away impressed by Claire Danes. In 1996, Claire Danes starred in my personal favorite of her filmography, Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, which pairs Danes with the then on the rise Leonardo DiCaprio. It has the Shakespeare dialogue, but it's set in the 90s. It's able to modernize the story in a way that's not obnoxious, which is nearly impossible to do. Danes and DiCaprio have electric chemistry. When I think of Juliet as a character, I think about Claire Danes. My hot take, if you will, is that Romeo and Juliet is the better DiCaprio-led romantic epic between it and Titanic, and that does connect back to Claire Danes because she did turn down the opportunity to star in Titanic. Here's the reason why from Danes' interview with Marc Maron on WTF, where the comedian podcaster asked Danes, "Were you up for that role?" Danes responded, quote, "Yeah, I don't know. I didn't want to do it. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I just done this, literally just finished filming this romantic epic with Leo in Mexico where they filmed Titanic, and it just seemed a little redundant at that point." End quote. When talking about an acting career, of course it's important to talk about the choices made by an actor, the movies they make, and the movies they don't. Danes in Titanic would have taken her film career in a completely different direction, and I don't necessarily think it would have been a better one. Titanic is the film in 1997 she didn't make. The two she did make were Oliver Stone's U-Turn with Sean Penn, Jennifer Lopez, Nick Nolte, Joaquin Phoenix, Billy Bob Thornton, and Jon Voight. Dane plays Jenny, who is hitting on the out-of-towner Bobby, played by Penn, which angers her boyfriend Toby, who goes by TNT, played by Phoenix. I don't think this is one of Oliver Stone's best movies, but it is an entertaining one to say the least. Danes is one of the bright spots of that film. Her other film in 97 was Francis Ford Coppola's The Rainmaker, one of my favorite John Grisham adaptations with Matt Damon, Danny DeVito, again Jon Voight, Mickey Rourke, and Danny Glover. In it, Dane plays Kelly, who is a victim of domestic violence, and we could debate how effectively the movie handles that topic. I personally love the scenes between Damon and Danes. You watch that movie and you can tell why they were two stars on the rise. The next year of Claire Danes' career I want to focus on is 2002. She first was in one of my favorite movies, Igby Goes Down, playing Sookie, who forms a real connection with Igby, played brilliantly by Kieran Culkin, and then dates his snobbish brother Oliver, played by Ryan Phillippe, in his best role. It's the most underrated film of Claire Danes' filmography. It's got this weird tone. It's a great mix of comedy and drama. There's real sadness in the movie, yet I find it to be endlessly entertaining. I would best describe that movie as emotionally raw. The second film of that year for her was the awards contending The Hours, where Danes shares her scenes with Meryl Streep. It's a prestige movie that I don't personally love. I know people go back to it because it's the movie that won Nicole Kidman an Oscar. I just did not enjoy watching this movie. The two movies that Claire Danes was in 2005 are interesting. The first being Shop Girl, where she plays Mirabelle, who starts a relationship with an older wealthy man played by Steve Martin, who also wrote the movie. I recently watched this and find it to be massively flawed, yet I really enjoyed what Claire Danes was doing in this movie. She is the saving grace of the movie. The entire movie would fall apart if she were not in it. Her other film from 2005 is the holiday film The Family Stone, a star-studded movie that is entertaining. I also rewatched this, and it's crazy to me that Claire Danes is top billing. She is not the lead of this movie. I think it just says something about her star power at the time. The last of her film performances I want to talk about are 2007 Stardust. I love everything about this movie. It's a fairy tale where Danes is playing a literal star that has fallen from the sky. She's got insane chemistry with Charlie Cox. It has one of my favorite Robert De Niro supporting roles, and Michelle Pfeiffer is on fire in this movie. I have said this on this podcast a lot. A movie star to me is not somebody who sells you on a movie. I get it. We think of it as, I see that person is in a movie, I want to watch that movie, and that makes sense to me. But a true movie star in my eyes is somebody who elevates a movie better to what it has any right being, and that's what Claire Danes does in Stardust. I love her British accent in the movie. I don't care if you do as well. I find it to be very effective. Stardust is a movie I have to watch at least one time a year, probably more than that at this point. It's just one of those movies I get a lot of joy watching, and most of that has to do with Claire Danes. Then you have 2010's Temple Grandin. This is the movie that took her career to the next level. It's the type of biopic I want. It puts on display what's interesting about its subject matter. Grandin is someone who, despite being autistic, is an inventor, scientist, journalist, a true genius in my mind. It's without a doubt her best performance in a movie, and for her work, Claire Danes got an Emmy Award. When most people talk about the best recent television performances, they mention Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad, they mention Jon Hamm in Mad Men. I believe Claire Danes in Homeland needs to be in that conversation. She plays CIA analyst Carrie Carrie Matheson, who is great at her job but deals with the fact that she is bipolar. The first season won the Emmy for Best Drama, and Danes herself was nominated for Best Leading Actress 5 times, winning twice in 2012 and 2013. It is a more than fair critique of that show to say that it fell off during the latter seasons, but it remained entertaining because of Claire Danes. It became a singular performance. It's impossible to argue that Claire Danes has now best become known for her television work. Recently, after Homeland, she starred in the miniseries The Excess Serpent with Tom Hiddleston. Fleischman is in Trouble with Jesse Eisenberg, which was popular, and she's not the lead in it, but has moments where she takes over, both in 2022 and Full Circle with Timothy Olyphant in 2023. And I'm not going to lie, I'm conflicted by the fact that television is giving her better roles and leading roles. I watch movies way more than shows, but when Claire Danes is in anything, I take notice. Do I desperately want her to see her back on the big screen? Yes, but television has given her better opportunities. At the time of Homeland, Danes was also offered a supporting role in Clint Eastwood's J. Edgar, and here's what Danes said about that when Scott Feinberg of The Hollywood Reporter brought it up on his Awards Chatter podcast. Quote, "Oh yeah, I guess there was a chance of maybe playing the secretary to Leo's movie, J. Edgar Hoover, and I just thought, do I want to be the secretary or do I want to be the Hoover?" End quote. That to me says everything you need to know about why Claire Danes is making more television and not making movies, because she is too good of an actress to play a secretary in a mid-movie. She should be the lead of great projects, and right now those projects appear to all be on television. But one would think that great directors are watching Homeland and saying to themselves, I want Claire Danes to be the star of my movie. Why isn't that happening? I just don't understand it. When I think of the best actresses in the world, the name Claire Danes is always on the top of my personal list. I am someone who from time to time gets upset when I see actors in television shows instead of movies, but I don't really have those feelings towards Claire Danes because the proof is in the pudding. I love the show Homeland. I really enjoyed Fleischman is in Trouble. I think she's done her best work on television, even though I can go back and say I loved her work in Igby Goes Down. I loved her in Romeo and Juliet. I think her best acting has been on television, and her best role in a film was a television movie. I guess what I'm trying to say here is movies have let Claire Danes down. So this is the part of the podcast where I usually ponder the question, is the person I'm talking about a movie star? And you can't really do that with Claire Danes because she's not a movie star, but she is a star actress. So I will still ask the question, is she more of a star or a great actress? And I think in the case of Claire Danes, she is without a doubt both of those things. I think she is a star, but she is not someone who brings the same characteristics to each performance and has an intense quality I don't see in a lot of performers. I mean this as a compliment. I feel her commitment level to every role, and I admire that. I get the sense that she is the type of actor who knows that the job of performing is to entertain an audience. What do I personally want from Claire Danes in the future? I mean, I absolutely want to see her in movies, but more than that, I want to see her work with great directors. Like, I would absolutely love nothing more than to see Claire Danes in a film directed by David Fincher. Like, I just think that that combination would really be effective, and she would be then given the opportunity to give a great performance on film, which I would like to say she has done that in the past. I'm talking about getting to a level where she could get an Oscar nomination. Like, that's the type of actor I'm talking about here. I believe Claire Danes is a brilliant actor. That's why I'm talking about her on this podcast. And I think television audiences now understand that more so than movie audiences, because she hasn't been in movies consistently since 2010. I mean, she just hasn't been in movies. I want to see her back, and I want to see her back working with true auteur filmmakers. I mean, all I'm asking for is for Greta Gerwig to put Claire Danes in a movie. Another thing that I find really interesting looking back on the career of Claire Danes is I think there's a lot of turning points throughout her career where she gained new fans. I mean, there's the obvious one, My So-Called Life. That was the introduction. But then I think there was a bunch of people who discovered her with Romeo and Juliet, and then that took her to another level. And then more recently, there's Homeland, which I'm sure garnered her a bunch of new fans. I don't think the career of Claire Danes gets talked about enough, and that's why I'm not sure what the actual consensus of her as an actress is. Like, if I were to give you my list of the top 10 actresses working today, Claire Danes would, without a doubt, make my top 5. Like I was saying, I am not somebody who watches a lot of television shows. I much prefer movies, but when I see that Claire Danes is in something, I watch it. Before I watched all of Homeland, I watched Temple Grandin, and I was so blown away by it, I then watched the entire series of Homeland. There has never been a point in my entire life where she has not been culturally relevant. I watched Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet in high school, not at home, during class. I do want to talk a little bit more about her rejecting Titanic, because what that did is it made it so that there's not one defining project of Claire Danes' entire career. I mean, it's not just My So-Called Life. It's not just Romeo and Juliet. It's not just Homeland. I mean, she's not just one thing to anyone. She's been in a lot of different kinds of projects. She's been really versatile. She's not a one-hit wonder. She doesn't have that one Oscar nomination that defines her entire career. And I don't want to keep repeating myself, but she just elevates everything she's in. Like, I don't think the movie Temple Grandin works if it weren't for Claire Danes. I don't think Homeland would have been a hit if it were anyone other than Claire Danes. I'm not somebody who likes to rewatch a ton of movies. I like to watch new stuff most of the time. But she is somebody whose filmography I do go back and rewatch. Like I said, I have watched Stardust a lot. I've seen The Rainmaker a lot of times. Romeo and Juliet is a movie I have to rewatch from time to time. The same goes for Igby Goes Down, and I just find that all of her performances in all of those movies really hold up. Also, I have to say this, I have watched My So-Called Life, the entire series, the whole 19 episodes, at least 3 times. That is an addictive television show, and that all comes back to Claire Danes. And make no mistake about it, this is not a situation where Claire Danes is just one of my favorite actresses. I think she is one of the best performers of her generation, and I don't think she always gets her due, especially when it comes to her work in films. And I think that's one of the reasons it must be why she's navigated more towards television, because she's been properly rewarded and recognized by that medium. And in movies other than Little Women and Romeo and Juliet, it's not like she was in a lot of hits. From the beginning, since My So-Called Life, television has understood just how special Claire Danes is, and unfortunately, movies have not. And it's my hope that at some point, movies come to that conclusion that she is one of the greats, and she should be the lead of more movies. Whether or not that happens, I will continue to watch the work of Claire Danes. I think a good place to end end this podcast is to talk about the actors who have been the best screen partners with Claire Danes. And atop the list is Kieran Culkin in Igby Goes Down. I mean, those two have electric chemistry in that film. And the other one is David Strathairn in Temple Grandin. I love their scenes together in that movie. That's a movie that I just have to continue to recommend that you watch immediately. If you have HBO Max, watch Temple Grandin and you will have a better appreciation of Claire Danes as an actress. Because when I watched that movie, I was already on board with Claire Danes, and then by the time I was done, I was like, this is one of the best actors on planet Earth, one of the best actors I've ever seen. That's not hyperbole. Claire Danes is the real deal. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcast and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.